Welcome to another episode of the Saddle Up Show with Shaad and Destin. This episode is brought to you by Horseshoe Huddle, Fan Nation, Sports Illustrated. We back for another episode, man. We feeling great as ever. It's draft season, our favorite time of the year. For you guys that haven't yet, make sure you go get that brand new indie draft guide that just came out. My man had a hand in working on that, and it's awesome, man. I mean, it's awesome. Over 200 draft profiles. Like it is, you can't ask for much more than that. You know, people talking directly about how certain players fit with the Indianapolis Colts and with other teams in the NFL. It's the best thing out right now. You know, I know there's guys like Dane Brugler who has the beast, which is a grueling exercise. I commend him for doing such a thing. I could never do nothing like that because I just don't work hard enough to do that. But Destin may. And Destin, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I mean, super pumped for the indie draft guy being out. So everybody, make sure to check that out. Bunch of great draft minds, not including myself, that put a lot of great work and time into that. Just a lot of different
Don't be so
prospect
humble, Destin.
breakdowns and a lot of different. Well, I don't want to say like a lot of draft minds, including myself. Like that seems crazy, but. But for real, just a lot of great draft analysis, and then you're not going to get many places that make it specific towards the team that you are a fan
Yeah.
of. So it's
hmm
really cool to kind of get to see prospect breakdowns, but then also how they fit with your favorite team. So make sure you guys are checking that out.
Yeah, man. Colts fans and Colts community should be appreciative as a whole because not every team doesn't have this. You know, every team doesn't have people, draft analysts that come in and write specific players up and talk about how they fit with your specific team. You know, a lot of times you have to read generic draft guides and just kind of imagine how it will fit. These guys are telling you exactly how it correlates with the current roster and the current team that's in place right now. Something that I think is important. And speaking of current roster that's in place, we could talk about the roster finally showing up for work this past Monday.
And the
Shane Steichen
317, we
Sh-
here.
Shane Steichen got a chance to address the team for the first time, and today he addressed the media for the first time since the new season has begun. What was your initial thoughts on the 11-minute press conference? I know he was pretty brief with his answers, and he had a pretty much consistent theme throughout it. But I'm gonna see what you think first before I give my opinion.
I mean, press conference Shane is football, man, just strictly football. So that's just always going to be like how I look at him. He just doesn't really mess around. He's not like the Mike McDaniels in Miami, where you're going to get a guy who likes to make jokes and play around and these things. Like he's pretty straightforward and wants to talk ball. I do want to talk about just like that first going towards the team, speaking to the team aspect of it as well that the Colts posted. I have no idea if this is going to translate to him being a great coach, so I don't want it to be heard like that. But I'm not saying this is a negative about Frank Reich, but the difference in like energy and difference in delivery from Frank Reich to Shane Steichen is a 180. Like these dudes are
Yeah.
polar opposites in how they speak to a team, how they go at this process. Now that doesn't
Mhm.
mean it's the right his way is the right way. That doesn't mean Frank Reich's way is the right or wrong way. Just my opening analysis of it is these men could not be more different.
Yeah, and before I touch on it, I kind of want to catch this super chat from Sarah. She was kind enough to send that to us, and it says, "Shaad and Destin, you both are amazing. I truly love your content, and Drake and Andrew as well. To me, we should go quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver, and offensive line, then edge. I like that order, Sarah. We truly appreciate the super chat. Today we're gonna be talking about wide receivers in depth, and we're gonna run off our list, our top tens. And if you guys want us to address a specific person, then leave it in the chat. Of course, super chat people get first priority, but we're more than happy to break down any of these guys because we've done the work. And when we've done the work, you'll be happy to talk about these guys because if you're gonna sit in front and watch tape about him for hours, you might as well get to talk about him to other people. So we'll be more than happy to do that. We're gonna touch on tight ends as well. We know the Colts don't really need a tight end and not prioritizing the tight end position with the addition of Farrell Brown. Um, the Colts pretty much set in that position group. But we'll still touch on them and talk about different guys we like or maybe not like, whatever the case may be. And to the Shane Steichen thing that you said earlier, yeah, man. What I like about him is he's really stressing the relationships, and I think he really believes and really feels in his heart of hearts that you know the connection makes you play tougher for one another. And that's the you play sports coming up. You know that if you like a person, you have a personal relationship with a person, you play that much harder for that person. I've always lived that way. I played ball growing up, and if I like a guy personally, I'm gonna do that much more. I'm gonna go all out just a tad bit, and that's something that's so simple, but not a lot of coaches stress that. They don't stress the connection that they need to have with some of these players. But that's really an instrumental part in getting the players to buy in, and I think that's what Shane is trying to do in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he just wanted to get those pillars he's talked about a lot. He wanted to get those drilled in there. I mean, and I like the aspect where he had to say that like you are not guaranteed one of these chairs. I mean, you don't have to be here. Like to be in this chair is an honor, let alone to make the roster come
Hmm.
August. So I love that element of it. And then I mean I always have enjoyed listening to him in pressers so far, just because I'm a little bit of a football nerd, as you guys probably know. So getting to hear a guy that just loves to talk the X's and O's and wants to do that, like I'm super pumped to see him in post game action, to kind of see him break down the wins, the losses, where things went well, where things didn't go well. Super excited to see him just make those comments about like this rookie quarterback that we have coming in and how those progressions are going. I'm just pumped to listen to the guy talk football.
Yeah, yeah, man. And in other Colts news today, we saw that Tom Pelissero tweeted that the Colts converted 5 million of DeForest Buckner's salary, opening up 2.5 million in cap space. And I know everybody bells and whistles went off about this must be for a specific move. Maybe it's just the Colts pulling a couple levers. I know they could have easily got this same amount of money had they just cut Nick Foles, which I'm sure is going to happen very at some point this offseason. I don't even want to say very soon. I don't want to put a date on it because
There's
they're
no
in
deadline.
right, exactly. They have no incentive on whether they cut him tomorrow or they cut him August 30th. It doesn't matter to them. They're going to cut him eventually. Nick Foles will not be on this roster come the start of the season. But do you think that move was done for anything in particular? I personally don't. I think they just was opening up some room just in case after the draft, probably when they see a couple of holes that they wasn't able to address via draft. They want to go out and get a couple of guys that they feel like they need to plug some holes.
I mean, I like that it kind of made it to where DeForest Buckner can't be traded this year. I like
Hmm.
that it kind of just like ruled that out, kind of smell blood in the water after the Stephon Gilmore trade. So I liked that element of it. I mean, the only two things that it really could go towards if they were in negotiations with a player, and Rashad reported last week on our show that there is an offer out to a player at a certain position. Um, so I don't know if that could be a part of it, a part of that negotiations, just to get some extra money real quick to where it doesn't like affect anything, or if you're going to renegotiate a guy that's on the roster. Sometimes one of the priorities that happens with that is you go to in-house extensions. Two guys that are up for
Hmm.
extensions that can be done at any time from now until the end of the season, essentially, is Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. So those two are guys that they can watch out for and that they have expressed interest in wanting to extend. And I guess we'll kind of see how it all plays out. I know Quentin Nelson's extension this past year kind of went up like right up to that first game in the regular season.
Yeah, it's
So
right there.
yeah, so they kept moving and negotiating that one out right before the season started. I wouldn't be shocked if at least one of them got done.
Hmm.
I if I had to pick one that I think is more likely, I'd say Jonathan Taylor. If I had
Yeah.
to pick which one I would extend if I was in charge, I think I would go Michael Pittman though.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the way the landscape of the NFL as a whole, the value of a pass catcher is way higher than the value of a running back. Although a lot of people, majority of people, feel like Jonathan Taylor is a better player than Michael Pittman. I don't disagree with that. We're just talking about strictly positional value and how it translates to the team. Okay, let's get into these receivers, man. Do you want to start first, and do you want to count down from
Are
10 to
we
1?
are we starting receivers or tight ends?
Well, tight ends is gonna go pretty quick. So maybe we should hit tight ends first,
I'm with you.
and and then do wide receivers. Okay, okay. Well, you don't necessarily have to do a tight end breakdown. Just tell me who your tight end one is, and tell me why.
Okay. So tight end one for me. I went with Michael Mayer, Notre Dame, Indiana kid, obviously from the Notre Dame.
Bias. You're biased. Damn
It's
it.
it's it's honestly not even a bias thing. I just think so. I really like the top four in this class first and
hmm
foremost.
hmm
I mean, if I had to guess, our top four is the same. It may not be the same order, but the same four. So I have Michael Mayer at one, Dalton Kincaid at two out of Utah, Darnell Washington from Georgia at three, Luke Musgrave at
That's what I
four.
got for. Yeah.
So I like all four of those guys a lot. Like I think
hmm
all four of those guys are going to hear their name within the first two rounds. So we'll kind of see how those go. But Michael Mayer to me, when I look at all four of those guys that I like a lot altogether, the reason that I go him at one is I think he's the most all around guy of this class. I think all of them have pros, cons. I just think Michael Mayer offers the most overall compared to the others, where I think Dalton Kincaid's going to be the best option as a pass catcher. I think Darnell Washington's the best blocker, obviously.
hmm
So like that's in the end of why I went Michael Mayer at one, because I think all around that's what I give him.
Yeah, man, I like Michael Mayer's game. True inline tight end. It's great in the run game. I know he's not Darnell Washington, but he's still a great blocker.
Hmm.
Imposes will on smaller defenders. Great hand placement when he's blocking. Soft hands. Surprisingly, very very soft hands, and is an asset in the passing game. Has yak ability too a little bit. I was shocked when I watched this tape. How much little wiggle he has as a bigger guy and with a blocking focus. Most of the time when you have a guy that's really blocking centric, he typically don't give you much in the passing game. We saw he's not a Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle was the safety net, just was a great blocker, but was always there for 5 yards. If it was 3rd and 5, he was going to get you 5. Michael Mayer, I think, has a bit more to his game than that. I seen him make catches in traffic. I was impressed with that. He high points the ball in some plays. So Michael Mayer's my tight end too, but I'm not mad at anybody that has him as tight end one. So talk to me about your tight end two. Who is my tight end one? Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, so I have Dalton Kincaid at number two. I think Dalton Kincaid is the most natural pass catcher of these top tight ends in this class. I think the only element that really drops him to two, a little bit smaller in size than these top four, which I mean that's a brand of tight end that some teams are going to want more anyway. I just the size element is an element where it's hard to fight against the guys that are huge and are able to do other things. So I have Dalton Kincaid at two just because this is a passing league. So
Mm-hmm,
that element of it has to get the notch a little bit,
mm-hmm.
but just because of the smaller in size a little bit and really little to no effect in the run game at the moment, that's why Kincaid's at two and Mayer's at one for me.
Not mad at that. My player comp for Michael Mayer, by the way, is Brent Selleck. I don't know if a lot of people remember Brent Selleck with the Eagles. Similar size, I think similar ability in the way they play the game on the field. If I tell people my player comp for Dalton Kincaid, I'm gonna make people very very angry at me. But let me just go over why I like Dalton Kincaid. And shout out to Sarah who sent us a super chat again saying don't sleep on Sam Laporta from Iowa. He is my tight end 5.
I have him at six.
Okay, I was about to say I'm probably a little higher on him than most people, but I watched his tape and I fell in love with Laporta. Like I really fell in love with his game. I mention him later though. Soon as we wrap up these four. Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a solid athlete, long strider, little subtleness to his game. He really sets defenders up in his routes well, almost receiver like. The way he creates space at the top of his routes. I think he's good going up against zone coverage. Seemed like he always found a soft spot in the zone. Pretty sure-handed. He got enough juice to be a yak monster. And my favorite part about him is his ability to high point the football. Like the type of catches that he makes, acrobatic catches. He lines up in the slot, or sometimes you can isolate him like a traditional X receiver, and he's fine in that role. I think he gives you enough juice out there to where he can substitute for a wide receiver. He he's a monster in the passing game, man. My player comp for Dalton Kincaid is actually it's Travis
Say,
Kelsey.
I was say, just
It's
say it.
it's it's
We
it's,
knew where
it's,
this was going.
it's Travis Kelsey, man. I really that is his absolute ceiling, of course, when I'm speaking about that.
But does he
And
have Travis Kelsey's swag?
absolutely not. Not we're not
See, so
absolutely not.
we're saying Travis Kelsey minus swag.
Yes.
That's a different
Yes.
player. Just saying, it's a different player.
And in Travis Kelsey's defense, what I like about Travis Kelsey when he came out, he was pretty Dalton Kincaid similar as far as the blocking aspect of his game. Dalton Kincaid's not much of a blocker at all. I mean, he'll get in the way, he makes effort. Travis Kelsey was the same way. Like he was really a liability as far as his blocking went. But he has gotten a lot better throughout his career in that asset. And you can see him making strides in that direction to become a better blocker. I like Dalton Kincaid, man. I'm super high on him. He's the only tight end I have though with a first round grade. The rest of these guys I have as second round grades, but there are guys that should go in the first round probably. Like Michael Mayer, I think is a first round tight end in this draft.
I think it just all depends on how many teams want to tight end enough to do it.
Right.
I reported today, like I've heard a lot of smoke that the Lions like the top of this tight end class.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions are a team that have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. So I feel like that second round is probably a better route for them to get one of these top four. At 3 for me is Darnell Washington. Like I said earlier, best blocking tight end in this class. You don't normally see a guy that is this good of a blocker that is also this good of an athlete. But
Yeah.
Darnell Washington's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit freaky in how he moves. I think he may have a little bit more of a growing curve in the pass game early. He
Mm-hmm.
may need to get polished a little bit and coached up. But if you trust the coaches you have in place to be able to unlock this guy, like there's probably the element that he has the highest ceiling of this entire tight end class, because to have the already be a special run blocker, and someone that can impact the game that way, and to have the athleticism that you just can't teach, if you can just get him to be a better route runner and someone that can high point the ball a little bit better, like he's going to be a guy that can be really special at the next level. But I have him at tight end 3.
I have him at tight end 3 as well. Athletic freak, great blocker, basically a six offensive lineman on the field. He's great at base blocking, like one-on-one base blocking, and he's great as a chipper. He can pull out in space, and get out in front of a ball carrier and block well. I think he's barely scratching the surface as a pass catcher, honestly. His catch radius is huge, and we all know he high points the football well. I mean, you can just turn on the highlight tape and you can watch that. I think the way Georgia used him did him no favors, though. I think he's still real raw as a route
Well,
runner
being tight end 2 there also is not going to be able to highlight him enough.
because tight end 1 is boy,
Unreal.
boy. What my God, Brock Powers is he's
Tight end 1 for the 2024
oh my
class
God.
is
Our receiver 1 for the 2024 class is we're gonna have fun this time next year. We're gonna have a lot of fun. But yeah, man, like I said, I think he's a bit stiff when running his routes. It looks a bit robotic coming out of his breaks. That's all things that he has to work on to get a little more fluid, become a little more fluid in his route running. But Darnell Washington he's that, that mold of clay that these people love to get their hands on. And I think you can turn him into something special if you actually put the time in and put the work in. Talk to me about tight end 4. Well, my player comp for Darnell Washington was Jelani Woods, by the way. But talk to me about tight end 4, Luke Musgrave, a guy we saw up close at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, so Luke Musgraves to me is a little bit Michael Mayer light. He's
Mm-hmm.
also a guy who's a little bit balanced all around.
Mm-hmm.
Has a solid addition to the pass game. Has a solid addition in the run game. He even talked to us at the Senior Bowl a little bit, and I may be able to find the clip where I asked him the question. He talked about it to be able to put it out, but he covered the fact that when he went into college, he didn't care about the run blocking side of being a tight end. Like it just wasn't an aspect of it that he cared about. His
Mm-hmm.
coaches kind of ran that through his head of what's going to make you different at the next level is when you come into the league already with that ability. So like that element of it is really nice. I don't think he has the ceiling of these other top three, but I think he could be a solid tight end at the next level, and it's still a guy that should go in the top 2 rounds who is balanced over both places. He may not be special on either side of the pass catching or run blocking side at the next level, but how many special tight ends are there at the next level? Really, like you could be a all around good tight end and still be like tight end 6, tight end 7 in the NFL right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think he got great size at the position. He's a good athlete. You remember when they was telling us like he was gonna test real like freakishly? We was expecting him to blow the roof off at the combine. I mean, he didn't do that, but there was some wild predictions on how he was going to test, and it just never came to be. I think he's good on the seam routes. I think that's actually his best route that he ran in college football last year. The ability to make catches in traffic, long strider, builds up a lot of speed as he goes. Pretty fluid, good at changing pace on the route. He looks skinny though to me. Like I know he's pretty heavy guy, but he looks a bit slender.
That's what I'm wondering, if his blocking ability that has been better the last 2 years of college,
Yeah.
if it's going to hold up at the NFL level. Like if it's going to be
Yeah.
similar, if he's going
Yeah.
to result regress a little bit going against bigger guys and those linebackers and these safeties that are going to be assigned to him in block coverage.
hmm
I am curious of how he's going to hold.
Yeah, me too. My player comp for him was Austin Hooper. He reminds me a lot of Austin Hooper, and he had similar draft profiles. When Hooper came out a few years back. Is there anybody else that you want to mention? We'll talk about one more guy each if you want. I could talk about Sam Laporta because
Yeah, I say I'll let you do Sam Laporta. And I know Sarah put it in here earlier, so we want to make sure to talk about him. I have Sam Laporta as my tight end 6. The guy
who's
that
your
I'll
tight
talk
end 5?
Tucker Kraft out of South Dakota State.
I have
Um,
him as my tight end 6. Wow,
I
that's
say
crazy.
so. The guy I'm actually going to talk about though is Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion. He's my
Mm,
tight end 7.
mm.
And if you're looking on YouTube, that was the person that was in our little header thumbnail. Dang, I'm new here. Um, our thumbnail. But I mean, Zach
Yes.
Kuntz is an athletic freak. I mean, Jelani Woods goes out last year, becomes the most athletic tight end in in the combine era. Um, Only lasted a season. We have Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion come out and do it as well, and I think he is very raw. And an element of why I have him at tight end 7 that's going to be higher than a lot of people. But the
Mhm.
fact of it is, at the tight end position, maybe I don't know if I want to say more than any other position, but it is one of the top positions in the NFL where if you are a below average athlete, you struggle,
Yeah.
that you just do. So
Yep.
the fact that he has that special athletic ability to kind of open up options for him at the next level, we saw it with Jelani Woods last year. A little bit slow start,
Mhm.
and can find ways to make plays at times, but may not have the rookie of the year capabilities at the tight end position by any means. But he's a guy who has a super high ceiling because of his size, because of his athleticism, and just his willingness to do whatever role. He's not a special run blocker yet by any means, but
Uh-huh.
has times on tape where he just takes guys out of plays because that's what the coach told him to do. So if you give this guy a task, he's a guy who gives 110% in everything he does, and that mentality and that athleticism, I just have a hard time thinking this kid doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I think we should have gave this disclaimer before we even started talking about these tight ends. Tight ends is one of the hardest positions to transfer to in the NFL. Like it
Especially
takes
year one.
Yes, it takes a couple of years before you finally get your feet under you because there's a lot that you have to do. It's a lot on your plate, and it typically takes time. So, when we talk about these guys, sometimes we're projecting a couple of years down the road. We're not projecting what we're going to see as a rookie next year. Some of these guys, especially a guy like Kuntz, I think he has staying power. I think he can find a role in the NFL and make and carve out a long career for himself. But I just don't think it's going to happen for a couple of years, because he's so raw. Sam Laporta is the last guy I'll touch on. Some of his strengths, like I said, I fell in love with his tape. I wasn't familiar with him. I didn't personally watch a lot of Iowa football, but turns out they have a lot of good players at Iowa, and I ended up watching a lot more Iowa than I thought I would. when I was evaluating different positions. But he's versatile with the way they used him. I mean, he was like their everything as far as their passing game. They used him in line. They split him out in the slot. He was also out wide and isolated on one side of the formation. I think he's a really good athlete, and he's a yak monster. I'm talking about get the ball in his hands. They ran screens, little flares, quick slants, anything to just get the ball in this guy's hands. And he made plays repeatedly. So I love that. He's definitely a move tight end at the next level. He got good footwork. He beat man coverage off the line of scrimmage a ton. And I mean, as a blocker, there's some concern. You know, he's not really a good base blocker. You don't want to isolate him having blocking the defensive end or anything like that. And he has some drop concerns. But my player comp for him was Colin Granson, actually. That's the kind of guy he reminds me of. Gets the immediate separation from guys off the line of scrimmage. And I think he'll be a mismatch if most tight ends, I mean, most linebackers that's trying to guard him at the line of scrimmage. I think he'll find ways to create separation. And when he's going against zone coverage, finds little soft spots in those zones to sit down and make catches.
Yeah, I mean, again, that like that smaller body type is always going to be something that, like, if two guys are close to me, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go the guy that has just a little bit more size.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason I think Laporta goes to 6. He's coming from a system that really knows how to develop tight ends there in Iowa. I'm sure Sarah will like that we mentioned that. But I don't know if tight end's a place that we're going to have to look at here for the Colts. But it's definitely a position that I think is a lot of fun in this year's class. And if you do
Mm-hmm.
need a tight end across the NFL, it's one where I think you can get some solid guys on day 2, early day 3.
Yeah, and I know you spoke about size when you were talking about these tight ends. So let's talk about the complete opposite at the wide receiver position because there are a bunch of tiny men in this NFL draft at the wide receiver position. This is probably the smallest wide receiver class I've ever seen.
Yeah,
In
some of these corners should have played receiver. That's what I'm learning.
yeah, you are absolutely right, and they probably could have made a bag off of it too. It would have been definitely X receivers in this draft. But let's get to it. Okay, I know we want to. You want to give your top 10? Give me your top 10.
So you want me to do my entire 10 and then are we gonna go, like, how do you want to do it?
Uh,
You want to break it into half? I'll go 10 to
yeah,
5.
yeah.
You do
Go
your
go
10 to
10.
5.
Go 10 to 5. Yeah,
All right.
go 10 to 5, and we'll do it
So
that
right
way.
at 10, I have Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State.
Ugh.
Oh, I apologize. Xavier Hutchinson's 11. I just wanted to say his name. At 10, I have A.T. Perry from Wake Forest.
Okay.
9, I have Cedric Tillman from Tennessee. At 8, I have Marvin Mims Jr. from Oklahoma. At 7, this is my guy in this receiver class, and I'm a little higher on than most. So everybody, cover your ears if you're gonna hate how high this is. At 7, I have Trey Palmer from Nebraska.
What?
At at 6, I have Josh Downs from UCLA. At 5, I have Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee.
I'm not mad at that. The only reason I'm not mad at that because I have one of those guys in my top 10 too. But I put mine at 10. Destin. That's what I did. I put mine at 10. You know, I didn't put him way at 7.
Hey, I think he's that good, man. We'll talk about it here soon.
I, I like Trey Palmer. I like his
I do.
game. I don't think he's 7, but I like his game for sure.
I know
Um,
he's 7.
number 10. Number 10 is Jaden Reed, wide receiver from Michigan State. I'm sure Destin knew that was coming. Probably predicted that one. Number 9 is Cedric Tillman. Number 8 is Jalen Hyatt. Number 7. This one's gonna rub people the wrong way, man. But I'm ready to do it. I am ready to do it. Tyler Scott is number 7 for me. Number 6 is Josh Downs. And number 5 is who is this? Oh, number 5 is Marvin Mims Jr.
So we had 4 of the same players, 2 in the same spot. We both had Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee at 9. We both had Josh Downs at 6.
Okay, so who you want to talk about? Who you want to start with? Uh, know
I
what?
mean,
I'll let you start with AT. Tell me about AT Perry. I never watched him
yeah.
yet. He's
So
a
so
guy I haven't watched.
So AT Perry's a lot of fun, man. I mean, 6'4", depending on what site
Okay.
you look at, 6'5".
Okay.
So big body guy, 4.4 ish speed, guy that can move really well. Like the big thing with him is his route tree just isn't really developed yet. So there's this sense with him
That's
of
Cedric Tillman as well. That's Cedric
so
Tillman.
there's this big sense with AT Perry of what he can be. So you're drafting a guy of what he could be, not what he is now. Because
Hmm.
right now he's a guy that's fast and big. So like he can do the jump ball area for you down the sideline and get a little separation that way. Until he has a developed route tree, he's probably not going to create separation in many other areas.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make up that somewhere else. But I like AT Perry's game. And in a class full of small, fast guys, he's a big, fast guy, and I like his upside.
Yeah, and one thing you can see by his size, there's not a lot of those big traditional X guys in this draft class. So if you happen to find one, you kind of got to pull the trigger on those guys a little earlier. If you're one of those teams that's looking for somebody to fill that role, you got to pull the trigger on them a little earlier than you probably would like to. But a guy like A.T. Perry, Cedric Tillman, those guys, it's not a lot of them. Quentin Johnston, I guess, even though he doesn't even play like his size to me. But we'll
Well, I
talk
was
about
say
that later.
TCU had him listed at 6'5", and he measured in at under 6'2" at
Too,
the scouting
yeah,
combine. So
yeah.
TCU has some explanations to be making.
TCU is still a bit dizzy from that national championship game, so forgive them. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, the guy who's not on Destin's list, is he in your top 15 at least? Top 16, 17, something? Give me something, Destin.
Jaden Reed is in my top 17
Oh God,
because he is 17.
I figured he was 17 for you to
He's
say that.
he's just so like I had him in a mock draft recently. I like his fit in Indianapolis. Like
Hmm.
I do like it if Chris Ballard gets out of his own way and kind of changes the draft strategy with the new offense. Even um,
Yeah,
it's just he's really small. The bust ability with these small guys coming into the league, like it happens a lot, even when they're small, quick. Like
yeah.
there's just a very high bust ability. I think he has a lot of potential, man. Like I like his traits. I like his movement in and out of his routes. He was making dudes look silly at the Senior Bowl.
Well, I'm glad you did it for me. I barely have to discuss it now. He would be a guy. Honestly, he would be in most people's top tens if he ran a tad bit faster and he tested a bit better at the combine. Because I think with his skill set, if he was an elite athlete, uh, as far as his ball skills and his route running ability and the way he gets separation throughout his routes, I think all that's really good. But I think for it to work at the next level, he needs to be an elite athlete because of his size. And I just don't think he's that. But I just like him as a player so much. I have to put him at 10 at least because the show that he put on at the Senior Bowl, as a wide receiver, and he has return ability. He's ran a bunch of punts back at Michigan State as well. But the hands, the ball tracking ability is something that I just love about his game, and he showed up in the big games, against Ohio State and the other teams that he played. He put up really good numbers, so I was impressed with him. Talk to me about Jalen Hyatt.
So I mean, Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee was one of those guys where every time you saw this man, he was open. Like it was a
Hmm.
sense of like
Hmm.
what's going on. Like there was a game where we watched him score 4 touchdowns this past year,
Yeah, it
and
was
every
ridiculous
single one of them, there was not a defender within 5 yards of the guy. Like
against a pretty good team, right?
yeah, I mean, like, dude was that I just had that ability where he just creates separation in an
Hmm.
offense that really limits what their weapons can do. Because I mean, we've talked about this with the Hendon Hooker stuff. If you heard me over the last week or so, like Tennessee uses the vertical style offense where they use the boundaries almost strictly. So Jalen
Yeah,
Hyatt almost always was lining up almost out of bounds. Like they like to
yeah.
line their receivers up on the sideline.
Hmm.
So the fact that we got to see Jalen Hyatt do some of the stuff he can do against with that handicap on his back, like I
Yeah,
think he's going to be an even better pro.
yeah. He's a guy, smaller size. Well, I guess he's average compared to the rest of these guys in his class. I believe he came in right at 6 feet. So, he's a guy that takes the top off of defenses, and that's a skill set that's valued in the NFL. My player comp for him was Deshaun Jackson actually, and I see so many similarities to the way they both win in his game. He's an elite athlete. The vertical jump is there. The broad jump was really good. So I like that ability. What scares me is the amount of space he was with in college. He won't have that to work with in the NFL. So he's gonna have to get better at making people miss in the phone booth and creating separation that way. But as far as the deep threat, I think he can come in and have a role in the offense immediately as that. Like he can come in. That's his floor when he gets drafted to the NFL to come in and be probably a wide receiver 3 somewhere or wide receiver 4, and you just have him taking the top off of defenses while your main guys, your stars, work the underneath routes in the intermediate areas. And I think you can find success in that role and last a long time in the NFL doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and then the last guy I want to mention for my 5 to 10 was Trey Palmer, because I know I'm higher on him than most.
I was I wasn't gonna ask you about Trey Palmer, by the way. I hope you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that.
you were just gonna make me not get to talk about my guy here, but I think the thing with Trey Palmer is the versatility in a class full of Z, which was slot receivers. He's a guy who can be a Z and a Y. Like he offers the versatility to kind of move things around a little bit. He has the speed that you want to take the top off the defense. I think he has the ability to be better in the run after catch world than he even looked like in college. I think he's a guy who can just turn a single into a home run. And that's the big things with a guy like him that I think first of all I would love him in Indianapolis. Like that's where we get to kind of start about
Oh,
that.
that's what you're
Like
hinting at,
I
man.
I like his fit here in Steichen's offense, but I also just think he's a guy with the type of versatility he has in a class that just doesn't have that much compared to especially to years past. Like I just think there's way more possibilities with a guy like Trey Palmer than some of these other guys in this class who I also like quite a bit. But like you mentioned Tyler Scott, I have him a little bit lower than my top 10. He's at 12 for
Mhm.
me. I like Tyler Scott. I just think Trey Palmer offers more versatility long term. But I think Tyler Scott probably gets drafted higher than Trey Palmer, even though I have Trey Palmer rated higher, if that makes sense.
Just say you got a soft spot for him, man. That's just fine.
Hey, I mentioned it to start. I know that Trey Palmer is like one of my guys in this class, so I know I'm going to be higher on him than most. But I just think the versatility he offers raises his floor and his ceiling, and I like what he has to offer. So would love to have the Cornhusker here in Indianapolis.
Okay, give me a, top 5.
So this is the top four because we ended up saying five, which I think we probably
We
didn't
did.
mean to do, but we just
We
did
did.
it.
We definitely
So
did.
four, I got Shaad's boy Jordan Addison out of USC. Um, three, I have Quentin Johnston out of TCU.
He's gonna do it. He's gonna
I
do it.
have at two, I have Zay Flowers out of
Oh,
Boston
okay, I thought you was
College,
gonna do it. That's
and
okay.
at one, I have Jackson Smith Ninjigba out of Ohio State.
Okay, I'm not that mad at that. Okay, I have Zay Flowers out of Boston College at 4. At number 3, I have Quentin. I'm joking. Quinn Johnson's my number 2. I have Jordan Addison at number 3. I have Quinn Johnson at number 2, and I have Jackson Smith and Jigba as my number 1.
So
And let me tell you, let me
yeah,
start
go
this
ahead.
way because it was hard for me to go against what I like. I'm a Quentin Johnston as far as his physical profile. I love those type of wide receivers. But let me tell you something. He doesn't play like those type of wide receivers. Quentin Johnson surprisingly was when I watched him, he was a yak guy. A guy that created in short area situations. He wasn't really like a guy that high pointed the football really well. He was a deep threat. I think his ball tracking skills is phenomenal. The way he tracks down deep balls, but he doesn't use his size in a dominant way like most guys with that frame would. I don't know if that's coming at the next level, but I I just I was disappointed a bit when I watched him. I thought he was the way people spoke about him, clear cut number 1 receiver in his class because that's what it was built to be throughout the college football season.
Well, that's what
And you know,
happens when your school lies to everyone saying you're 3 inches taller than you are.
yeah, he's definitely not 6'5". He's nowhere near 6'5". Actually, he's 6'2", and he
He came in
plays
just below 6'2".
and he plays like he's 6 feet. Honestly, like when you look at the way he plays on the field, it's not that type of guy. I was disappointed, which is why I couldn't put him number one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he ends up dropping to three. First of all, the 3 inch drop when this happens at the combine, like that was drastic for
Yeah,
me.
it was.
So when Quentin Johnston's he's being portrayed as the X receiver in a draft
No doubt.
with no X receivers. Like that was his selling point. So 6'5", nice speed in and out of his cuts. Go to the combine, you measure in at just below 6'2", and like that just takes a little bit of the niche off of it. He ends up
Hmm.
falling to three for me just because I think the upside of the top two. Well, first of all, like Jackson Smith and Jigba is the only one who has a definite first round grade for me in this receiver class.
Yeah.
I think he's the only lock to go in the first round. The rest of this class, like there are guys that have there's like 3 to 4 guys that have the potential to go in the top 20. They have the potential to
Hmm.
fall to the middle of the second. Like there is a weird middle ground for both of these guys. But I think Zay Flowers and Jackson Smith and Jigba, they offer more home run ability. They offer more ability to fit the majority of offenses where I think Quentin Johnston only really fits in the X role. Whereas I think the other two offer a little bit more special upside. And that's why they kind of got the bump for me. And I see the chat is asking a big question about a receiver neither of us had in our top 10. And that being Jonathan Mingo. We had two people here asking.
Hmm.
So I know where I have Jonathan Mingo. Do you have him ranked
I don't
currently?
have him ranked. I didn't watch Jonathan Mingo, A.T. Perry, and it was one more guy that's in the top 20 that I haven't watched yet. Those are my last three on my list that I have to watch.
So I
So
like
I don't
Jonathan
have it. I
Mingo.
don't have him ranked yet.
So I
I see
like
a lot
Jonathan
of
Mingo
good
quite a
things
bit.
about him though.
I like Jonathan Mingo quite a bit. I have him at 15. I think
Okay.
part of the reason is I think he is a big slot.
Hmm.
And I think that's a role that some teams like a lot. I just think it's a very specific role that some of these other guys just offer me more above him that I
Hmm.
have. I mean, so like I know Jonathan Mingo and Tyler Scott are big people right now that Colts fans are in love with.
Yeah.
And I like both of them. I got to talk with Jonathan Mingo at the Senior Bowl. He's a guy who is really hungry for the next level, and he's grown a ton through this process. I heard a team say that there is these thoughts that he could go late first. I when I watch him on tape, I don't see a first round receiver. That's why I have receiver 15. I think he's a guy that I would feel comfortable drafting like in the fourth, into the third. But I do know that he's one of the guys that Colts Nation loves a lot right now. Zay Flowers is a guy who, if you want to hear a little bit more about my stuff on him, I have an article coming out tomorrow that is titled Building Steichen's Offense. It's a 3-part series that I'm starting where I'll be looking at the second round, the third round, and day 3 targets that the Colts could look at to make the transition to Steichen's offense. And a little spoiler is that Zay Flowers is one of the guys listed on tomorrow's piece for round 2.
Okay, well, let me talk about Zay Flowers then. Since you're gonna do it in your article, I don't want you to run anything before it come out. So let me talk about him. Zay Flowers, yak god. He is a yak god. Put the ball in his hands. He makes plays. Uh, I love the way he runs his routes. He runs his routes. It looked like he's moving at 1,000 miles an hour. I know he's not elite athlete. You know, he's a smaller guy, but he has a compact frame. He runs through arms tackles. Guys bounce off of him after he have the ball in his hands. Man, he beats press coverage off the line of scrimmage with no problem. I like when the play breaks down. He works back to the quarterback. He makes himself available in those scramble plays when quarterbacks have to create off platform and off script. Tracks deep ball well. He caught a lot of deep balls, and he dunks on guys. You know, at 5'9", he will go up and catch one on your head. Like
A little muscle hamster too for his size.
yeah, man. That's why I say that compact frame and the way he looks, you know, it's almost like he's a running back, basically, once the ball gets in his hands. And the way he's able to make guys miss, a lot of wiggle in this game when he catch the ball. I like Zay Flowers a lot, and if he was just about probably 3 inches, 2 inches taller, he'd probably be my wide receiver one, to be honest. But I think he's a very good fit for what the Indianapolis Colts need right now, especially after losing a guy like Paris Campbell. You need a guy that can work from the inside, and I think Zay Flowers offers that in bunches.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So we are down to talk receivers for just about the next 10 minutes. So any
Hmm.
guys you guys want to put in the comment section, feel free if there's a guy we haven't talked about yet. I like this receiver class quite a bit. A lot of specific types, a lot of Z, a lot of Ys, not a lot of X's. And what just happens to be for the Colts is that's what we need. We need that Y
Yeah.
that has the ability to take the top off the defense in this new offense.
Say his name. Say his name, Destin. I'm putting you on the spot.
This is Andre.
Okay, we got that
Andre
part. Iosivas? I don't
say
even.
Iosivas.
That's
Iosivas.
what Iosivas. That's what we're going with.
Iosivas. That sounded good. Iosivas. I,
Ios.
but I mean, Andre's another guy that like look at the A.T. Perry build that I kind of said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit of that in the light. Like again, a big bodied guy moves really well for his size.
Track
Um,
guy, right?
yeah,
Former track guy.
exactly. Like
Mm-hmm.
track speed. Like
Mm-hmm.
the track speed is something that NFL GMs, NFL scouts, like track speed is one of the things that translates to the pro level more than just
Yeah.
about any trait you're going to get. Like you can teach things all you want. You're not going to teach a guy to have track speed. Like you're just not. This guy is a big bodied guy, is going to be able to play the X. He probably is going to have the ability to play the Z as well if they
Mm-hmm.
can get his route tree a little bit more defined, a little bit more polished. So I think when you look at him, it's all about do you trust your staff that's in place to develop him? But he's not going to be a guy that plays right away. And that's the big thing when it comes to him. But Patrick Rye here with what would you think about Bryce Ford Wheaton? Think they could go for him like they did with Strong and double dip? Sky high RAS at the combine. So Bryce Ford was one of the guys I had in my most recent mock draft I did for the Colts. And a lot of the reasons you just said. I think he is a big bodied receiver that may fit Steichen's level of offense once they can get his traits to translate to his route tree than what Michael Strong is right now. And with the new coaching staff coming in, those kind of guys aren't safe on the roster anymore. I'll keep saying that. So being able to draft a higher upside guy on day three is something I could see them doing and trying to
Mm-hmm.
attack that way. Um, but Bryce Ford Wheaton is a fun prospect. He's a guy that's going to go in the sixth, seventh round. Probably he may go undrafted, but I think the upside with his size and speed will get someone to bite on him in the sixth or seventh round. But high upside guy, just really, really raw when it comes to how his route tree is polished and how he doesn't really offer much separation outside of just pure speed one on one right now.
Yeah, I think his skill set would be kind of redundant, with the Indianapolis Colts per se. The production just wasn't there, like it just wasn't there for him. But what he can do physically is he's an imposing guy. Like if you look at him physically, he's a big guy. He has the speed, the long speed, but he doesn't have the separation speed. And that's going to be his biggest issue at the next level. Constantly and consistently creating separation. You don't want everything the guy to do to be a jump ball. Like, that's what Alec Pierce is currently struggling with right now. But you want to be a guy that can create some separation even when you're at that size. And I think if we haven't seen Strong get the playing time yet and work his way to the field, I just find it hard for Bryce Ford Wheaton to come in here and jump him, because I think physically they offer pretty much the same thing.
I saw this one and I had to go to it.
Uh-oh.
Raheem Jarrett. I love
Man
Raheem
crush.
Jarrett. He
Man
did not he
crush.
did not make my top 10, but he's a guy I've been talking up for months. I think he's a guy who, if the Colts go elsewhere in rounds 2, 3, 4, I mean, I think Raheem Jarrett could hear his name in the fourth round, most likely in the fifth, but he could hear his name in the fourth. I think Raheem Jarrett's a day 3 prospect that if the Colts, for whatever reason, go corner, interior line, and kind of leave those openings there, Raheem Jarrett's a guy who I think you get on day 3, has the upside and floor ability to play day 1, has a ton of run after catch ability at the next level, and again, just has the ability to turn singles into home runs. And that's an element that I think this offense has missed a lot at the receiver room. So if you can get a guy like Raheem Jarrett on day 3 because you swing and miss or you just aren't able to get a swing on a receiver on those first 3 rounds, I love his fit here. I just think Raheem Jarrett was lowered on my list in the top 10 just because I think that upside ability that some of these other guys had above him, as well as just I think Raheem Jarrett may fit our offense specifically and other vertical type offenses more than he will the majority of NFL offenses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Matthew Timmons says, think we take a receiver at 35 if there's a Zay Flowers or a top 3 guy there at that pick. I think absolutely no way with the current state of these cornerbacks in this DB room. I think it's no way you could take a receiver. I know the Colts may do it. I'd be shocked if Chris Ballard actually did it. And the only logical reason I can see them actually doing it is if they decide, okay, this wide receiver class is not that deep. Let me get a guy I like right now because I can get a corner later. But I just don't see it. I just have my doubts. I think they want a cornerback, and I think they want an instant starter or a guy that can come in and play immediately at cornerback. And I think if there's a chance to get one of the guys that they highly touted, one of those top 3, top 4 guys on their board, I think they're going to take that cornerback. But I fully expect them to trade back at 35 if everything goes according to the way it's supposed to go. If the Colts end up trading pick 79 to go up to the number 3 spot and make their quarterback pick, I
Then
think
it's a
they'll
lock.
trade back from 35. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they trade back from 35 and get that third rounder back.
Yeah, so I mean, I like I said, I don't want to talk too much about this. I have an article coming out tomorrow that's going to talk about it. Zay Flowers is one of the guys I listed. I think he's the level of guy. I think there's 3 positions that the Colts would rather take in at the 35/second round, and it's corner, interior offensive line, receiver. I think those are the 3 that they would rather take. I think corner is just the clear favorite right now. That they have a lot of guys that could be best player available on their board, but if for whatever reason the board doesn't fall that way, I think because of how deep the corners are in this class, like we've said a lot, that if a guy like Zay Flowers is there at 35, if he's there at 45 when you trade back ish, whatever you want to call it, he's the level of guy who, and I'll talk more about it in this article tomorrow, but is smaller than what Chris Ballard normally goes for. But with a change in the offense, it's time for the draft strategy to be adjusted as well to said offense. And Zay Flowers is fit in this vertical style offense in the slot that the Colts need is truly great.
Yeah, Zay Flowers, man. Like you said, a muscle hamster, put the ball in his hands, and he's going to make a play. I know we're not talking about offensive linemen. Destin couldn't help it. I saw you put Cody Mock up there. I think the Colts take Cody Mock, actually. If he's there at 35,
There's a
that's
chance.
real. That's going to be real intriguing and really hard for them to pass up,
He he
especially.
he also may or may not be in my article tomorrow.
So Destin came on here. He can't talk about anything. All
Yeah,
right.
apparently. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard. Like, I have this article coming out tomorrow. Cody Mock and Zay Flowers might be in it. I guess you guys will see. But that's what I said it a second ago. But that's just what I really want you guys to leave here with. Is we're gonna have to head out here soon.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback, obviously, we've all heard that's the talk of the town. That is the plan in the first round. I think the 3 positions that you guys should keep your eyes on, looking at prospects on, just kind of get who you like at these spots: receiver, corner, interior O line, with corner being the emphasis. I think those 3 are the positions to keep your eye on at 35 slash the second round if they trade back, that they could look at if the board falls the way they want to. Those are the spots that they look at right now that they know they want to add at. So it'll just be depending on how the first round goes.
Yeah, and if you heard any names that you're intrigued by, don't forget to pick up the draft guide and go in there. Oh, I did want to hit this question really quick, because he asked it earlier. The real Mr. Coach, are there any receivers from Florida to pair Richardson with? No. Thank you for
Well,
asking.
do
I
we call
appreciate.
Justin Shorter a receiver or a tight end at the next level?
He's. I have him as a tight end, but I mean,
Okay.
I guess
I have
if
him
you
as a
wanna
special
finesse it.
teamer and not either, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
I mean,
Um,
you're not drafting just
the
not to pair
only
with
the
Anthony
only
Richardson.
receiving option that's going to get drafted out of Florida this year is Justin Shorter has the best chance. He's going to be a day 3 guy. He's either a receiver or a tight end. It depends on how you look at it, but he's more of a special teamer, especially day 1.
Destin, would he be a wide receiver if he was shorter?
Okay. And on that note,
Boom,
guys,
boom.
um, really appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. We'll be back at it again next Wednesday. And the drafts are right around the corner, people. We are 15 days away from April 27th, 2 weeks from tomorrow, from the NFL draft being here. And we don't have to argue about who the quarterback is anymore because we'll know.
See you guys next week. Thank y'all for tapping in. Peace.